Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar for first year RSC schools. This webinar is going to be focusing on the next step in the planning process, which is to expand resources and to establish your priority goals. We also today are going to talk about the Lilly Counseling Initiative and how we want to use RSC as the planning process within the Lilly Initiative. So we'll show you how that works, and actually we're going to start with that. So today's agenda is to look at the counseling initiative from Lilly. We'll look at the planning grant, and we're also going to spend a little bit of time looking at the implementation grant. So these are the questions that this presentation will answer. Should we apply for these grants? How do we use RSC? You know, what do we spend our money on? How do we set ourselves up right now to be competitive on the implementation grant? So we'll be looking at all those things. And then we'll also prep for Council Discussion 4, it is number 4, on expanding resources and looking at your priority goals. Okay, so let's talk about the Lilly Counseling Initiative. Debbie told me she talked with a school yesterday that had no idea there even was a Lilly Counseling Initiative. So we just want to make sure that you're all aware of this. There's two parts to the Lilly Initiative. The first part is a planning phase. It lasts for 5 months, from January till May of this school year. And the purpose of this whole initiative with Lilly, they want to increase the number of students in Indiana who are, and then this is really important to remember, who are emotionally healthy, realize academic success, graduate from high school, obtain valuable post-secondary credentials, and are ready to compete in a global society. So this is the whole focus of the Lilly Initiative. The nice thing is it's also the whole focus of RSC, and we suspect it's probably the whole focus of your school counseling program, is to help kids be successful. So these grants this grant merges very well with our organization's mission, as well as I think your school counseling program's mission. So it's a good fit. Then the grant amounts, this is a non-competitive grant. Every district in Indiana is eligible for it. The amounts are $30,000 if a district has less than 5,000 students, and $50,000 if your district has more than 5,000 students. The grant deadline is December 15th, which is 9 days away. So that's why we wanted to make sure we talked about this today, and we're also going to give you some resources that will help you write your planning grant. Okay, so then after the planning phase, you know, at the end of the planning phase, you'll come up with activities. I'm going to back up for a minute. At the end of the planning phase, you'll have activities that you want to do, and the same thing's true in RSC. At the end of RSC, you have activities you want to implement. Our very last step is to find money, and we suggest to people as our very last step, go after a grant to support your work, or ask your principal if you can have some money to support your work, you know, just for the funding that you need. So this year it's going to be a really good fix for you guys, because now you have an additional funding source that at the end of RSC, anything that you've planned that you need money for, you can put into your implementation grant, which is funding for you for the next 4 years. So that funding period lasts for 4 years. Its purpose is to enable you to implement the things that you've planned through RSC. So you might need, for your activities that you're planning to implement next year and years after, you might need professional development, you might need materials, you might need time to develop things. So those are all things that you can pay for with the implementation grant. So those are very large grants, $100,000 for districts with fewer than 1,000 students, and $100,000 per student for districts with over 1,000 students. And the grant deadline is May 19th, which, you know, just works out great with you guys, because that is right after you finish your RSC work. So the timing of this really could not be better. If I could have designed the timing, this is exactly what I would have written. So it's really great. One other thing before I move off this slide, I think it's very significant that Lilly has made this a 4-year implementation grant. And I think it's very significant that the amounts are so high. You know, when you read an RFP, you're always trying to kind of, you know, read between the lines and what the funder is looking for. And I think that given that this is a 4-year implementation and it's a large dollar amount, I think that Lilly is looking for something very comprehensive, very out of the box, very innovative. And the nice thing is that that's also our organization. We've always been limited in the work that we've done with schools because we know to do something really innovative, you would need a lot of money. Now that we know that you are going to have access to a lot of money possibly, we're able then to talk to you about really innovative programs and really out of the box thinking about how to provide guidance and counseling services for kids. So the nice thing with this is that unlike previous years in RSC, when we get to the activities stage, we're really going to be able to talk with you about some pretty cool things. So, okay. So let's talk about the planning grant. The first question is, should you apply? Well, and oops, I got a slide in the wrong order, sorry. Should you apply? So first of all, we know that, I'm sorry, let me go back. So should you apply? We think the answer is absolutely 100% yes. You are going to be involved in planning activities second semester. Why not get money to help you implement them? You know, if you're bringing your counsel to the table, why not secure some funding to provide them with a dinner as a thank you for the you know, for the time that they're putting in. When you get to activities and you're doing activity research, why not have some money so you can do a site visit somewhere or bring a presenter from a school that is doing something really cool into your school? So we really think it would be silly for you not to apply for the planning grant. So the answer to that question is yes. Then the next question is, should we use RSC during the Lilly planning phase? In all of the meetings that we have been to with Lilly, at every single one, Gold Star School Counseling and Redesigning School Counseling has been described as a model school counseling program. So should you use RSC? Absolutely. We know that there may be others in your district that are, you know, now paying attention to school counseling, and you're having to explain to them what Gold Star and RSC is all about. So here's what I would say to anybody who asked you, why should we use RSC in the planning phase? First of all, it's proven, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but just remember that we've got research that shows that academic achievement is impacted by RSC. We know that our professional development model works. If it didn't, we wouldn't have 129 RAMP schools. We know that groups like the Indiana State Chamber of Commerce Foundation have published documentation that says that RSC is a consistent, comprehensive process that helps schools examine, organize, and redesign their school counseling efforts. And we've got a lot of testimony from you guys, from counselors. So if people are asking you why RSC during the planning phase, this would be some of the answers. Okay. Then the other thing is that RSC aligns really, really well with the Lilly Planning Grant RFP. When you look at the objectives in the RFP, that's what I just talked about, those objectives align so well with our organization and your work. The other thing is that in the RFP, there are suggested planning activities. And the nice thing is that you already have done a lot of them, and you're all set to do the rest of them in the next few months. So for example, in the RFP it says that one suggested activity is self-studies. You guys have already done 9 different self-studies. Your program self-study, counselor self-study, counselor time use. The student survey ends up being 5 different self-study reports. And then on the counselor survey, we end up with a student opportunities report. So, so you guys have studied and studied and studied yourselves. That is a big part of a planning process, and you've done it. So wonderful. And you've used those results, or are about to use those results, to help you make decisions. So you're doing it the right way. Also, in the RFP, Lilly talks about involving the community over and over again. And you have an advisory council that includes different stakeholder groups from within your school, as well as stakeholder groups in the community. So we think you've got to step up on that one as well, that you've got that in place. We are going to talk a little later about how to strengthen that, though. Also, Lilly suggests that you spend time during the planning phase researching model programs. And that is built in. We have a database of school counseling lesson plans from all of our previous RSC schools that you'll be able to search. We have a nice database of community-based guidance activities from 2,000 community organizations in Indiana. You'll be able to search that. And then new that we're developing just for you, and just because of now we have this funding that really allows us to do innovative things. We will be creating a ASA site visit guide that will help you understand what happens during a site visit, and then also suggest schools that we would recommend that you take a look at. And then we'll also provide a conference guide for you that will help you identify conferences that might be good to go to explore activities. There's one conference I'm going to talk about a little later. And then Lilly now has a Lilly resource document on their website that we'll be using as well when we get to that step. So everything that Lilly is suggesting that you do in the RFP, you're doing with RSC. So I want you to feel very confident that this is a sound program. I don't think you could find a better program that's proven in lots of different ways, and it really addresses everything that's in the RFP. Okay. So another question we're getting is then, okay, let's say we apply for these planning funds, which I know you're probably finishing up, or maybe even just beginning is fine, the planning grant application. What would you put in your budget? What would you spend your money on? So in terms of your work in RSC, this is what we would suggest. You've got some discussions coming up with your council. So for all of your future council meetings, I would think about, do you want to feed people? Do you want to do something special for them because they're, giving you their time to come in? My own school did that. We had a Lilly grant when I first started doing this, and we provided, matter of fact, we took our council out to some very nice restaurants and did meetings there. Especially on the longer meetings, that's nice because you can have some discussion, have dinner, and have more discussion, or lunch and more discussion. Also, we're going to talk in a minute about strengthening your council, and if you did a catch-up meeting for new council members, you could provide, again, a meal or somehow, support that meeting as well. Model program exploration, paying for site visits to around the country, or bringing counselors from other schools to your school to present, attending conferences. And then technical assistance. When your district's writing that part of the grant, why would you need a technical assistance provider? Well, normally you get a technical assistance provider when you don't have the time to do something, or you don't have the expertise. So let's say you wanted to research model programs that would impact attendance, but you don't have time to find the best programs from around the country. You could bring someone in to do that research for you and tell you where they think you should go to visit. So that might be an option. You might want somebody to help you dig into the drill down data, so you can find out exactly which students are not addressing the targeted the priority goals that you come up with today. And then help you with the planning process, but you don't need that because we're providing you with a planning process at no cost. Actually, the Department of Ed and our organization paid for that, so that's already paid for. And then at the end of this, we are going to be working with your district. If your district is enrolled in our district RSC, we'll be helping them write their grant. But if not, you may want to, bring in someone to help you write your implementation grant or review it. May not be necessary, but I know I've actually never spent money myself on that, but I know that some districts like to do that, either because of time or expertise. So these are kind of things that you could spend that technical assistance funding on. We're going to give you a sample budget a little later that would help you look at that. Okay. So let's look at the implementation grant money now. So again, the first question is, should you apply for the implementation grant? So we think that if, as a result of the planning that you do with us second semester, you want to implement activities that will cost money, then apply for the funding through the implementation grant. So if anything you want to do is going to cost money, now you have a money source. So yes, we definitely think that you would apply for the implementation grant. Now, remember that the implementation grant is a competitive grant. So then I know you're going to ask the question, because we've heard it over and over again, what if I don't get the implementation grant? Then what? Well, we don't see that as being a big deal. What we would suggest you do is just shop that grant application around. If Lilly's not going to fund it, then shop it to another foundation or take it to a big business in your county to ask if they would fund it. Or chunk it up. Ask the Kiwanis Club if they would fund this part, and ask the Lions Club if they would fund that part. So there will be, we think, ways to fund your implementation plan, even if you don't get the Lilly implementation grant. And if worse comes to worse, I can almost guarantee you that there will be a lot of things in the implementation plan that don't cost any money. And if so, you can just go ahead and implement those. So I don't think, if I were in your shoes, I'd be worrying right now about not getting the implementation grant, because I think there's a lot of different options if that happens. Okay, next question you might be thinking about the implementation grant is, what's it going to take to be competitive? If you really want this funding, how do you make yourself competitive? How do you set yourself up to be one of the awardees? Okay, we think the biggest thing you're going to need is vision. We think that in the rest of the planning process, now that we know that we can do something big and innovative because we're going to have money to develop it, what we think is important is that you just close your eyes and dream. What can you do to enable all students to be emotionally healthy, realize academic success, graduate from high school, all of those things? What could you possibly create if funding were not a limit to you? What could you possibly create that would do all those things? We've always invited you to dream and dream big, but I know that when there's, when you don't see that funding is possible, it's sometimes hard to dream big. But now you know the funding's there. You're going to have funding for professional development, for material development time, everything you need. So here's the visioning questions. And again, second semester, because we're going through the rest of the semester with you, rest of the planning process, we want to be thinking about, what are the choices that we want all students to make? That's the number one question. Well, guess what? You just did that last month. So you've got that part of visioning done. These are the choices that we want all students to make. Because of that issue with our system, you're going to go back and clean that up, but and take out anything that you're not really required to do. But you've got this list now that your council has come up with of all the choices you want every single student in your building to make. Then the next question is, what guidance and counseling delivery system will enable all students to make those choices? And that's where I think you needed to explore. Close your eyes, come up with your own thinking. How can we make sure that every student in our building makes this choice? And how are we going to make sure that every student makes that choice? And then the third question is, then once you come up with that system, what do we need to set up that system? Professional development, materials, an organizational structure or process. What are you going to need to set up that system? So I want you to notice, and this is really important, that in number 2 I bolded the word system. We've kind of done this visioning activity as well. Actually, we did this many years ago for our organization, as well as in my own school. Before starting the institute, we did this. And we really strongly believe that to reach all students, it can't be a program. It has to be a system. And I'll talk more about that in a second. That doesn't mean you have to go down that road with us. You could choose to go down a different road, but we're in all of the work that we do with you second semester, we're always going to be talking about setting up a system now. One other consideration in all of our work second semester with you is that whatever you come up with, we strongly believe it has to be sustainable. That normally means that you can't use the money to purchase a position. Because then after the 4 years, the funding's gone and you lose that position, and the person loses their job and everything's gone. So if you are going to think about use in the implementation phase funding a position, there also has to be a plan for sustaining that position after the funding period. In our dreaming, we think it's safer to dream a dream that does not require added positions. And here's what we think. Okay, so here's our vision. This is just our vision. You don't have to go down this road, but I just want to present this now so that to help you kind of think out of the box a little bit right now. So we don't believe that to be competitive, that Lilly's going to find a collection of school counseling activities to be innovative. Okay? We also don't think that they will find a counselor-led program innovative. And not only that, but a counselor-led program is totally limited to the time constraints of the counselors. So what we're suggesting and what we're going to be talking a lot about is developing a wraparound system where there's lots of different folks that are delivering guidance activities. This is something you've heard us talk about before. But the exciting thing now is that now we have professional development dollars that schools can use and time dollars that can be used to purchase time to develop the things that you need to develop. So just as a heads up, beginning next school year, beginning actually in October of 2017, we will be offering a new initiative called Guiding All Kids. And it's to do something that we've dreamed about doing forever. It's to help schools create a school counseling system. It'll be just like RSC, and actually for you guys it would start with RSC. We build upon RSC. And then we're looking at, we've got all these activities we want to do. We'll define the activities, we'll define the scope and sequence, and then we'll say who can come to the table to deliver these. So it may be that the counselor delivers something, and then there's a community organization that's going to reinforce it. And then the parents are going to also reinforce it at home. So we'll talk about all these different delivery models and combine them all into a system. It doesn't mean that you have to go down this road with us. It doesn't mean that you have to do all 5 of those different delivery models, but we will definitely help you think about those 5 delivery models during the second semester. And then if you like this idea, we'll help you implement it in the next 4 years. So, and again, you'll be exploring other ideas as well, not just ours, because part of second semester is exploring lots of cool ideas. So, so you'll be doing lots of exploring, but this is one that we just wanted to kind of get you to kind of begin thinking out of the box about. Okay, so when we go down that road, we'll provide all the things that we normally provide, organizational structure and process, guidance curriculum development, professional development for everybody, technical support. So if you like that, this idea, will provide everything you need. Okay, so what should you do now to be competitive right now? To start to be competitive, the biggest thing we'd like you to think about is strengthening your counsel. We know when we talk with schools, some of you have gone the minimal route and you have a council that's very small, and you've just met our minimum requirements, teachers, students, parents, community organizations, and business or industry. So those 5 types of folks are the only ones. In looking at the RFP and kind of reading between the lines, we think it's going to be really important. It doesn't say this in the RFP, but we've read a whole bunch of them, and we've been awarded a ton of grants over the last 20 years, so we kind of have a good sense of reading in. I would suggest that you also make sure that you've got somebody from economic development on your council. So your county has an economic development council. I would call them and tell them what you're doing and invite somebody to sit in on your council. Same thing with mental health organizations. In the past few years, all of the emphasis has been on STEM and career and tech ed, and this grant has social emotional health in it. So if you don't have anybody at the table that representing the mental health organizations in your community, I would definitely, if you're interested in being competitive for the implementation grant, I'd get a mental health person on your council. Then, in terms of if you kind of like that idea of the wraparound services and coordinating guidance activities throughout the community and throughout your school, I would also focus on these 5 organizations and make sure that they're on the table, at the table, because these are the organizations that later could help you deliver the program. So faith-based organizations could meet with kids in their youth groups. The youth-serving organizations like Kiwanis and, I'm sorry, like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, Boys Clubs, those organizations can deliver programming. Service clubs like Kiwanis and Rotary are big time helpers in delivering services. The public library, of course, their whole job is to get information out. And then higher education. They actually are on the same mission that you are, and are, from my experience, very willing to work with you in guiding your kids. So we now want to think of your council as a source of potential program deliverers. So to set yourself up for success, if you don't have these people on your council, I would go out and get them right now to help you be competitive in the implementation grant. Okay. And then the other group that I'd suggest that you really focus on right now is your community foundation, because down the road you're going to have to sustain this after 4 years. And if there is something that you need funding for after the 4 years, the community foundation would have access to lots of different ideas about potential funding within your community. So those are the groups that I'd emphasize. The whole reason why we originally asked you to have these folks on your council was for this reason, because we needed potential funders down the road, delivery people that would help you with delivery, and then a balance between the social personal health, emotional health, and the career and tech ed kind of stuff. So, okay, so that's that. I'm going to pause here for a minute. Debbie, questions?
No questions so far.
Okay, type in those questions because we really want to make sure you're comfortable. And I've got my eye on the watch. We're going to go pretty fast after we get out of this section. Okay, one other thing is that we have started offering an RSC for districts. If you have multiple RSC schools in your district, please make sure that your district people know that this is available. What we will help the district level folks do is to monitor your work, to help them coordinate with your work, and to help, they'll also be playing a role to advise you where coordination might be helpful. Like if they note, we'll ask them to look at everybody's activities. If they note that they've got 2 high schools and both high schools are planning a college fair, they can alert each high school that that they're maybe duplicating each other's efforts. So we'll be asking them to monitor and kind of do some coordinating district-wide. And then also we'll be asking them to be thinking about how can they support you. And one of the things that one of the ways they can help is grant writing. So especially in writing your needs into the Lilly implementation grant. So yeah, and then the final thing is that if you do get the implementation grant, they're going to need to put together an evaluation of the impact of the whole initiative, and of course we can use all of our data to help them evaluate district-wide how RSC is going. So yeah, so please let your district know that if you've got multiple schools in. Okay, so let's talk real quickly about writing your planning grant. So remember, the planning grant is non-competitive. And this is a quote from Lilly. So Lilly is saying, we hope to award planning grants to all eligible school corporations and charter schools that submit complete applications following the guidelines shown on pages 5, 6, and 7 of the request for proposals. So the intent here is that they really want to give funding to every district. What you need to do is make sure that you follow the guidelines on pages 5, 6, and 7. We have dissected over and over again pages 5, 6, and 7, and I think you're going to cover it all with your work with us. But the onus is on you. You really need to make sure you've read 5, 6, and 7 and that you are comfortable that you have met all the guidelines through your work with us when you turn in your application. And then also the application must be turned in by December 15th. Okay, so I want to show you this new page that we've created called the we call it the Lilly page, and let me go back to here and we'll open this up. So it's our address, and then at the end it's /Lilly. Okay, and on our Lilly page you'll see this is where people sign up for things. You do not need to sign up for school assistance because you're already in. Okay, on this Lilly page over here in Documents, this is the suggested planning grant language. So I'm going to open that up, and you'll see at the top here there is some just narrative, some suggestions for you, and then we get into the narrative. So I tried to set this up that it could actually be a template for you, that this is the, you would just take this document and use it. So you type in your name of the school and then your date. Lilly wants a cover sheet, so this is hot. You can open up the cover sheet there and then take that out. And then narrative, take out our notes to you. And then down the narrative section, here are the parts that Lilly has asked for. And then here's our tips for you on how to do those sections. So couple things I want to point out. This introduction section, Lilly does not ask for. I like to put that in when I'm applying for funding. I've read a little bit about our demographics of our district, and then I put in a rationale. And what I'm trying to show is that my rationale for applying for the money is the same as the funder's rationale for offering the money. I'm trying to show that this is a good fit, and this grant is an excellent fit for you. Okay, brief overview of the school counseling program. So we've given you tips, and then whenever there's something that we think you might want to draw from in your work with us already, we give you a link directly to that so you can open it up and get it immediately. So in your overview of your school counseling program, you can include language from your mission. You could include, today we're going to work on priority goals. You could include your priority goals. You could include your activities that you've been doing so far. And then if you have any activity providers that are not school counselors, I would definitely put those in to start to show that you're involving others in the delivery of the program. Okay, current strengths and weaknesses. Just a heads up, we think that you have such a strong program because you're a data-driven program and you have a council already, and you're monitoring different types of data. So I would definitely put that in as a strength. It's not something that a lot of schools have. Right now, from our perspective, about 1 in 10 of Indiana schools have this. So there's going to be a lot of schools that cannot say this about themselves. Challenges, we think it's really important to just be honest in this section. I mean, this is why you're applying for the funding, because you have challenges. Whatever you list as challenges, if you get an implementation grant, there's probably going to be the assumption that you make these challenges go away with the implementation funding. So kind of think about it that way as well. So I look at your data. And then one other thing we said in this part is we think it would be helpful to you to say that your challenges and your strengths were not just based on your hunches, but you can say, as a result of our student surveys, we understand that one of our challenges is that 80% of the students in our building on the day of the survey said that they were experiencing stress, or whatever. So if you can pull data into it to show folks that you are a data-driven school, we think that would be helpful. Community partners, I'm not going to go through all these, but just read our tips. The one thing I did want to mention was that the meat of your application is in this component that Lilly calls planned strategies and activities. So this is planned strategies and activities for the planning phase for what you're going to do second semester. So what we did here is we just wrote what you will be doing second semester. You'll tweak this a little bit, to meet your school's, the steps that you're going to be taking. I would definitely not just straight cut and paste this into your planning grant. I'd reword it a little bit so it's obvious that the words are coming from you and not from us. But we just wanted to give you a heads up. This is what you'll be doing. So, okay. Then who's implementing the grant? This is another place where you can establish that you already have community engagement. And then technical assistance. You can list all the technical assistance that you're going to be involved with, but definitely list us as well. So, and then in terms of the budget, and I say all technical assistance, it's very likely that you're not engaging with any technical assistance. So, but if you are engaging with others, you'd want to list them there and what needs you have. Okay, on your budget, technical support, we've listed $550 to cover our costs. However, you don't need to pay that because it's already been paid for you. So we can take that amount out. And that's going to give you some extra funding to spend. If you don't have access to printing in-house, a little bit of printing for your advisory council meetings, travel, for each person traveling to do a site visit, we would suggest around $900 to put into your budget. And then we kind of broke out here some funny notes on how we came up with the 900. Meetings, however many meetings you have left, and here's on the budget notes, you would just estimate the number of people, figure out how much you want to pay per meal. If you're doing a box lunch, it's probably going to be more like $7. If you're going to the country club, it's going to be a lot more. So, and then however many meetings that you want to fund that for. And then conferences. The one conference that we would suggest that will happen during the planning phase is the Evidence-Based School Counseling Conference. Evidence-Based School Counseling Conference. It is in San Diego, I think in March. It's a very good conference. We go to that a lot. We have presented at that a lot about our model school counseling program design process. But yeah, so I would think about going to that. Okay, and then Lilly also wants you to put in this exempt status and charity foundation status information form, and then you need a letter of support from your superintendent or principal. So, okay. So that's it. And again, we did this budget as though a school had about $3,000. And you may have more than that. It just depends when you have your discussions with your district. You need to ask the district, how much money can we have for the planning that we're going to be doing in our building. And then whatever that number is, then you would use that as your total amount in the grant. So, okay. And again, I put lots of notes in here, but I also tried to give you a template so that you could just use this as the template for your budget if you wanted to. Okay, that's that. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. I think that's it on Lilly. Oops. Yep, that's it. Okay. So I'm going to move on very quickly to this month's tasks, and we're probably going to go over, I hope, not more than 5 minutes. Debbie, any questions right now? Surely there are questions.
Yeah, Sue, sorry, I lost connectivity. Okay. But Daniel asked, would you, under that planned strategies and activities, do you suggest using your language almost verbatim? And I know you've kind of answered that, but he missed that that answer.
Yeah, and again, it's here's the deal. This is a non-competitive grant. If you just cut and paste it in there, would it be okay within a non-competitive grant? I mean, maybe. To be on the safe side, I would reword it, and and put it in there, you know, separately. I wish we could have applied on behalf of all of you, so you didn't even have to do this. But at any rate, yeah, I would reword it. So, other questions?
Okay, and one other, yes, was it previously suggested that we allocate $1,000 for this next round of grants and ASA services?
No. Trying to think where that would have come from. That's not ringing a bell anywhere. But so what will happen? So no, you're under no obligation to pay us anything. So your expenses for our services has already been paid. So in terms of the planning phase, we need no additional funding from you. If you decide you like this wraparound services and you want to continue with us in the next 4 years, then there will be amount that you put in your implementation grant. That will be a fairly hefty amount because there will be a lot of individualization to that. And it's very comprehensive, thinking about, you know, we're coordinating a system that allows you to bring in all these different players. So in a way that's really meaningful. So no, there's in the planning grant, there's no additional funding that needs to come to us. And in the implementation grant, if you want to continue with us, yes, and that's totally your choice, and no pressure from us to do that. There may be, I'm sure there's other good models out there too of how to do an innovative program. But if you want to continue with us, then there would be a fee, and we haven't priced that out yet. Any other questions, Debbie?
And that's it.
Okay.
Nope, that's all.
Okay, if you think of other questions as we go, you know, feel free to jot them in. Okay, so now, very quickly, and I wish we hadn't had to cover all of this, you know, in 1 month, but things happen and you adjust. Okay, so let's talk about this month's activities. So this month, you are, let's see, yep, this month you are doing my favorite day meeting, which is resource expansion and priority goals. I love this meeting. Okay, so these are just some tips for the steering team I'll begin with, and I'm going to really skim over a lot of this that I know you know, or I suspect you know. Let's see, I'm doing slideshow from current slide. Okay. Okay, so prepping for your next council meeting. I'm just going to skip through all of this stuff that we do every month, and I think by now you probably know. Okay. So I'm going to give you some tips on things that need to happen before you meet with your council, and then we'll do a very quick walkthrough of the council meeting. Okay, so there are some pre-meeting tasks that you need to do. The first thing you need to do is to calculate your actual time use percentages. So that means that in all of those time use logs that you've been keeping, all gazillions of them, for all of your counselors combined, you're going to add up how many guidance boxes you have, how many counseling boxes, advocacy management, and you're going to add those all up. That will give you your total number of boxes, and then you're going to calculate the percentage of time that you've spent for all counselors combined in each of these 5 areas. So you take your guidance number of guidance boxes and divide it by your total boxes. If you have used the Excel spreadsheet version of our of this, that information will already be totaled at the bottom of every week's worth of time use logs. But if you just use the Word document, you're actually going to be counting boxes. And I think for a year there's like 3,000 boxes. So so that's going to take some time. But it'll be time, you'll see in a minute, it's going to be time well spent. And just as an FYI, we've started working on doing this in a web-based version. The next time you do this, there will be a web-based version so that the computer will do all this calculation for you. But that was one of the last parts we are adding to the whole program. So, but for right now, we're still adding by hand. Okay, so that's one task. Then task 2 is we also need to calculate in reality how many school counselors you have, which may not be the same thing as what is stated on paper. So here's what that means. To determine how many counselors you have or what your total FTE is, full-time equivalency. Let me go back and explain why this might be different. Let's say you're a school, you have one counselor, and that counselor spends half their time doing assistant principal jobs. Then they don't really have a full-time counselor. They have a half-time counselor. So what we're going to do is we're going to take for each counselor, we're going to take the number of non-program boxes from your time task logs, divide that by the total boxes for that counselor, and then we're going to subtract that number from 1 and multiply it times 100. So that will give you your actual full-time equivalency, subtracting out the non-program time, the time that the counselor is not doing school counseling things. Rather than the number that just may be on paper. So here's Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones had 506 non-program boxes, and her total boxes was 2,025. So we divide that out, and we find out that she spent 0.25 or a quarter of her time doing non-program things. So Mrs. Jones was not a full-time school counselor, even though she might have been labeled that way on paper. She was actually a 0.75 or a 3/4 time full-time equivalency. So then, once you've done that for each counselor, then you add those together, and that will give you your total FTE for your department. Okay? Okay, so there's a sheet in the manual that also explains how to do all this, but I've come back to this slide, and I think it's pretty it's not too hard to understand. Okay, so now we can calculate your actual counselor to student ratio. So we're going to take your total student enrollment and divide it by your total readjusted FTE. So 700 students divided by 1.75 FTE gives me 400 students per one counselor. Okay, so we don't want to count the percentage of time that's spent on things that have nothing to do with school counseling. So that's why we're using our adjusted FTE here. That's taking that time out. Okay. Okay, so you're going to need that information for the next meeting. Okay. And then also for the next meeting, you're going to need to print out from the student survey the perceptions of the counselor report. We think that your reputation is a resource, and so we want to know what do people think about you. Okay. So, and again, if for some reason you don't want to share that, feel free to skip this section. But most counselors, if not all, over the years have told us that they found this discussion to be helpful. Okay, so you're going to go to the online system, click Student Survey, click View Reports, put in the current year, pick your school, and then you're looking for the Counselor Perception Summary Report is the one you're looking for. Okay, then we also need you to enter your non-program activities. This is really important to set for this meeting. So to do that, it's pretty easy. You're going to enter an activity title. You're going to put in a description. You're going to tell us what kind of activity it is. You'll say non-program. And then as soon as you've done that, you will not be able to put in student goals or counseling goals because it's non-program. And then what grade levels are you doing this non-program activity with? When, what's the time of the year you're going to do this non-program activity? So you're entering in all the non-program activities, and you'll see why in a sec. Okay. So let's go to the walkthrough. Yep, that's good. Okay, so the walkthrough, here is that meeting. Okay, so meeting 4. Okay, so today's agenda, review the process. Okay, and then again we have 2 products now that are developed, and we're telling them, you know, today we're going to look at expanding our resources, because we know that the more resources we have, the bigger we can make our program. And then we're also going to define our priority goals, and we'll talk about that in a second. So today is about resources and priority goals. So we're saying to folks, you know, we're coming in with this, with all of our goals, and, you know, I would have a printout of those goals to hand them, and then say, okay, today we're going to come up with our priority goals. So our priority goals are things that we're going to implement extra activities or more in-depth activities next year to address those goals. We're also going to monitor data for those priority goals to evaluate the impact of our activities. So what are our priority goals? So we're going to identify here that here's the deal. Time and resources limit the number of goals that we can identify as priority goals. If we're going to have priority goals, then we need to have the time and the resources to address those things in a bigger way. So if we don't have time and resources, we can't have a lot of priority goals. If we do have time and resources, we can have a bunch of priority goals. So today's activities is, first we're going to expand resources, because we've got all these goals, and again we're talking to the council and they've just identified all those goals. So we're saying we've got all these goals that you wanted, and I'd maybe even bring the flip chart paper from last month and put it up so they can see all the work that you did last month, and then say we can't have them all because we don't have enough time, we don't have enough resources to get all of those things. So we're going to pick a small number of those things that we'll work on next year. Typically, when we get to this point, people get upset because they see all these needs that kids have. We've already, you know, they've come to the point where they care and they've seen the data, and now we're telling them we can't fix it because we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money. And so at that point, first they get a little, you know, upset about it, and then they say, okay, what are we going to do about it? How can we get the counselors more time and more funding? So this is really powerful. So the first thing we'll talk about is a resource expansion plan, and we'll say here are the resources that we need. Time is the number one. You know, the more time we have, the more we can address kids' needs. So let's look at staff. Here's our staff, and then you would have filled out this sheet. Here's the staff, here's the FTE, here's the adjusted FTE. Now, at this point, I can almost guarantee you that if they see that Sue Reynolds is spending 50% of her time doing nothing, things that have nothing to do with school counseling, what they're going to say to you is, what in the world is Sue doing? Then you'll have that list of non-program activities that you just typed in, and you can say, well, funny you should ask. Here's the list of all the non-program activities that we do, and you pass out that list. You're not complaining about it, you're not saying, you know, this is bad, but they're going to realize that those non-program activities are keeping you from addressing the things that are on those posters, all of your goals. And their wheels will start to turn about advocating on your behalf to get rid of those non-program activities, or being really creative about how they could help with some of the non-program activities, especially your teachers, how they could help with the non-program activities so that you could spend your time with kids and parents. It happens every time there. Every year we have a school, or every few years we have a school that ends up hiring a new counselor right here, or people, you know, come to the plate to say how they'll help. Okay, so now we're talking about student to counselor ratio. And again, you know, your council is seeing all these needs that kids have, and you're saying, you know, we have, our ratio is 800 kids for one counselor, and they're going like, well, how does that work? So again, they'll become your advocates at this point. Do you have support staff? And again, you can change these X's in here, so adjust these before you do the presentation. We do have a support staff. We have all these non-program tasks, and you can type them in here as well. In terms of time, first of all, before we tell you, we're saying before we tell you how we spend our time, we'd like you to kind of think ideally, how would you like us to spend our time? So you're going back and you're kind of redefining what is guidance and counseling and advocacy management, non-program, just kind of refresh them on those definitions. And then this is the coolest activity ever. So you'll have 5 Instagraphs that are up on the wall, And you have asked, I'm going to go back a slide, you've asked people, I usually just say, take out a piece of scratch paper, write those 5 words down, write down the percentage that you would like me or our counselors to spend in each one of those areas, guiding, counseling, advocacy, management, non-program, based on all this data that you've seen of kids' needs. And I always joke that that percentage cannot add up to more than 100% of my time. So so we take that, and then we ask them to go up to each of 5 Instagraphs. So on this Instagraph is labeled guidance. They find the column that corresponds with the percentage of time that they spent, that they suggested, and they put a sticky dot or an X in that box. The next person comes up, and if they also said 40%, they'll put their X on top of the X in front of it. And what will appear just kind of magically is a bar graph. And it will, all the time that we've done this, I've never seen it not be a bell curve. And so then later you can say, okay, everybody, at the top of our bell curve, it is showing that you think that basically 60% of our time should be spent in guidance. And then same thing for counseling, advocacy, management, non-program. You'll have these 5 bell curves, and they'll come very close. When you add the top of all the bell curves, they'll come very close to 100%, if not right on. You may need to tweak a percent or so, but it'll become very evident how the council would like you to spend your time. Then you'll come back and say, okay, here's what you said was desired, here's what our actual is. And there it'll jump out at them again that their desired was that you would spend 0% on non-program. Your actual is at 80% or whatever it is. And again, this will make them become advocates for helping you gain control over your day. And they'll become problem solvers as well. Okay, budget. It's another big area, our per pupil expenditure. You can say, we don't have a budget, or my budget was 56 cents per student. So write in your budget. In terms of networking, here's our school network. So these are all the other resources, the lesser important ones in my opinion. But you'll just go through and check what resources are available. Okay. Perception of the school counselors. You would just here say that, the survey was taken by so many students, and here's what the kids thought. The kids thought that we don't care about them, and we know we do. And we counselors have talked about that. We think that's because we're so, have so much on our plates that we appear stressed out to the kids and short with them, and or whatever. So the perceptions, we think your reputation is a resource that you have, and we want to examine that here. Okay, so now we're going to ask them, they've talked about all these things, now we're going to ask them to prioritize. So what do we need to expand? Our staff, the amount of time we have, the budget, and budget would impact a lot of things. Network, professional development, and you might even say to them, I would not hold back on saying budget because there's this huge grant available, and if you think that budget would help, we have a possible solution there. So okay, so they do that, and my guess is that if your school is like all the others we've worked with, these top 3 are going to come out really huge. So then we want to put together a resource expansion plan, and they would just write down what's the resource, time, what's our plan for getting more time, budget, what's our plan for getting more budget, and on that budget one, you can write here, apply for the Lilly Implementation Grant. And I would talk to your district ahead of time and say, if we did get the $100,000, how much of that could come to my school? And so you could say, we have access to $20,000 that would help us, do with design and deliver our program. Help us deliver our program. Okay, so that's the first part. And now we're going to say, this is kind of an interesting part. We're going to say, okay, let's say we get the Lilly Implementation Grant. Let's say everybody who came up with these creative ideas about how to get us more time, let's say all that comes true. And that's the plan. How many of all those goals now can we select as priority goals? So given that we have identified many choices that students must make, given that our students make some choices at a greater rate than others, And given that we have limited resources, although not so limited now on funding, which, and here, please edit this. This says 1 to 3 because at the time we were thinking that we weren't going to have, when I first wrote this years ago, we weren't thinking that there was going to be, mega bucks for you. So I would just take this out and just say which student choices should be a priority as we implement the counseling program for next year. So what they'll do is, mute that. There we go. What they'll do is we'll give them a copy of this report, and we'll give them then time to look at it. And the question is, which goals jump out at them because they are key to academic success and students are not currently making that choice. So they'll go through here and they'll say, gosh, attending a financial aid night, we think that is really important, and look, only 16% of our kids do that. That's a priority goal for us. They might say it's also important to turn in homework, but 83% of the kids said they're doing that already. This is very subjective. Some people might think 83% is not enough. They want that to be 100%. But, others think 83 is pretty good. So, call the Learn More Indiana helpline. Only 1% of the kids is doing that. And that's something, that would cost no money to implement is strategies to help kids understand about that helpline. So, okay. So they're looking through that, and they're just going to check or some kind of earmark on the goals that they think are important. Then, given again the degree to which our students are already making or not making sound choices, and given the amount of time and resources that we think will be available next year, including the Lilly funding, if you're going to apply, is how many priority choices should we tackle and which goals should be priority. So this is where that visioning kind of helps a little bit too. If you're envisioning a wraparound service and you're really going to go, big time, let's really start bottom up and create this wonderful system that's supporting kids, you may be able to tackle 30, 40 different priority choices, and you've got 4 years to implement it and to design that system. You could tackle a lot of that. If you're not going to go down that road, you're going to kind of have a more traditional school counseling program, then I think 1 to 3 priority choices is probably, from our experience, what you could handle. And so first of all, you're going to define the number, and then you're going to define which goals should be a priority. And again, with that number, just keep remembering it doesn't have to all be you. You might have a teacher advisor program, that's going to meet with kids twice a month, and they can teach part of the guidance curriculum. You'll do some. That you might integrate some into your math classes and as English writing prompts, and so if you're really thinking, systemic and wraparound services that are going to be well coordinated, I think you can deal with a lot of those priority choices. I also think that your Lilly implementation grant will be really strong because you're going to have very clear expectations on what you want to have happen, as well as a very defined and clear delivery model. So, okay. So then for each of your goal target, for each of your priority goals, you want to identify which student group you have that goal for, what choice you want them to make, what percentage is currently making, and then what you want that percentage to be a year from now. This is something that you'll probably adjust as you progress. If you get the Lilly grant in the next 4 years, you'll change these targets, and we'll have to kind of come back and adjust all of that if we know that you have the 4-year implementation plan, because we can't do everything at once. So, but we'd want to know, just a year from now, where do you think you could be with that? Okay. So here's what that might look like. A student group is kindergarten, having fewer than 10 absences. Current date is 87. We want to bump that up to 95. So, okay, so that's what that priority goal looks like. Here's some middle school examples, high school examples. Tips. When you put those targets in there, you want the targets to be challenging but reachable by the end of the next school year. And remember that lots of people can implement activities to help you. I'm trying to think about too, when you put those targets in, if you're thinking systemic, one delivery model that we like is when we start with one grade level at a time. We'll probably suggest, if you're going systemic with this, that you focus on ninth grade first, and then maintain ninth and add 10th in the next year, and so forth. So it might be that, you know, you're setting priority. You have a whole bunch of priority goals, but on your on the current data for where you want to be a year from now, like 3/4 of them is what it currently is, and then 1/4, maybe the ninth grade ones that are more focused on ninth grade or one grade level, you've increased those on the targets. So I think when you dig into this, it will become evident, and please feel free to call Debbie and me to help you with that. Okay, capacity check. This is really big. This is the last thing we'll talk about, is that right now we want to make sure that if you're feeling overwhelmed, that this is your time to step up and say, I don't think I have the capacity for implementing all of this. We need to go back and either take out some priority goals, because I don't think we can do all of this. Again, if you're designing a system that's a wraparound system with us, I think you'll be able to hit a lot of those program goals. And nothing will be, wrapped in, nothing will be set in stone. If we start out and we figure out there's fewer priority goals that we're able to address than we originally thought, we can always adjust that. So, so if you are feeling overwhelmed, we need to obtain additional resources, or omit one or more priority goals. Okay, then finally, looking ahead, we're asking people, I would give people a set of sticky notes, and we're asking them to write down on the sticky notes things that they think might be getting in the way of you being able to realize the priority goals. So if one of your priority goals, for example, was freshmen having a 4-year high school course plan, what's getting in the way of that? And then they would write that on a sticky note and bring it to your meeting. So on the sticky notes, they'll put the priority goal, whatever it is, the report that they got that goal from, and then the root cause, and then their initials. So what they think is getting in the way, and then their initials. Okay. And prior to meeting 5, there's a letter that you'll send out to everybody that kind of explains this as well. So that's coming up. Okay. That is it. We are way over. I apologize. There's just so much to cover. We wanted to make sure that we talked to you about the Lilly grant now that the grant is about due. Debbie, what other questions do we have?
Yes, one of the questions, thinking back on the time use logs, is that time use from this semester or last? What semester do you want them to use?
It would be both. So that's why we had you start doing this at this time last year, so that we could have an entire year's worth of data. Good question.
Okay. Yes. Why the 100? Why the times 100 on the previous screen? I think that had to do with figuring it out 100%.
Yeah. Let me find out. Back to that screen real quickly. I think she is talking about. Nope, that was right in the beginning. Oh, actually, it was in the previous. I'm following. It's in the previous PowerPoint. Yeah, this one. So why 100 here? Yeah, it was just to, Debbie's totally right. It was just to take the 0.75 or whatever it ends up being and make it into a true percentage. So without this, it would be a 0.75 times 100 would be 75%.
Okay, what if there is a director that is part of the department that does the non-program stuff? Do we count them in as a counselor as well?
Yes, I would, because when that director is doing non-program stuff, that also takes that director away from serving kids and parents. So remember, if it's a program management thing, if it's something that they're doing to manage the school counseling program, that would be part of the school counseling program. But if they're doing, master scheduling teachers, if they're doing report card generation or permanent records and that kind of stuff, then that would be non-program, and that's taking that director away from serving students. So yes, I would include that director. Good question. Great questions.
Okay, last question. What if one of your priority goals does not have current data, from Stacy?
Okay, so if the priority goals does not have current data, if it's one that we've suggested to you, there will be data from the survey. If it's one that you put in and you can come up with data, remember there's a place in there that you can say, you know, oh, I haven't showed you that. Hang on. Sorry. Let me see here. I'm going to program goals. Okay, so in the process page, in the implementation part, let's see, program goals, expanding resources, priority goals. We want to upload the counselor time use logs here. Remember that we need one page from first semester and one page from second semester. The second semester would be from last school year, the first semester would be for this first school year, and you need both of those for each counselor. So if you have 3 counselors, you'd end up uploading a document with 6 pages to it. Okay, counselor time use percentages and student opportunities. Now that we've tallied up all of your time use percentages, we need to update that. We have time percentages in the system that you entered in by your guesses based on hunches. Now we can say, are these percentages based on a time task log? Yes, and update those please so that we have data-driven instead of hunch-driven data. Okay, enter your non-program activities. That's where you would do that. And just to show you real quickly, I'm entering program activities. I'm going to enter here. And as soon as I say activity type, watch what happens with the rest of this when I hit activity type. So I'm going to hit non-program, and it takes out those sections because it's not going to have, you know, program goals. It doesn't allow you to type anything in for those because it's telling you this has nothing to do with the program. Okay, okay, so that's that part. Then, okay, entering your priority goals. This is really nifty. I think our staff did a really nice job of creating this. So we've given you your program goals report that will have the data in it. Then you're going to select your priority goals. So I'm going to click there. Okay, here's all of my priority goals, and all you have to do is check the ones that you want to be priorities. So I'm just going to, let's say I'm just having 2 priority goals. I would check those 2 and then save. I'll go ahead and save that. And then go back. Oops, let me go back one more. Okay. And then my next step is to add the priority goal data, and this is what your question made me realize I hadn't talked about. So in entering the program goal data, this is, again, our staff I think just did a great job with this. I click enter. So here's the goal: have 10 or more absences in a semester for male students. So it's showing you who you put that goal in for, and then what are you going to count? This was a goal that was created by the school, so you're going to have to type in something there that you're going to count if you make it a priority goal. You'll see that you would put in the actual data, then you'd put in the target data, and then the date for both. So 2016, I got my actual data, my follow-up data is going to come in 17. And then do you have an up-to-date written for your high school course plan? If I click on student survey data, you'll see that I have actual data that appears there. In this case, 0% of the students said on the survey that they have an up-to-date for your high school course plan. I want to change that to 100%, so which is very doable in a year. Or in this case, that data was from 2014. So if you say, if it has survey data, this will actually come up as the default, and it will tell you, here's your baseline data, you just put in the target data. If you don't like the survey data, like maybe you don't want to use survey data, you want to actually open your file drawer and count how many for your course plans you have, which would be much stronger data, then you're going to click Other, and you're just going to type in here, I will count how many for your course plans I have in my file. So yeah, and then save, and you can add an additional actual, you can add an additional target in here. So, okay, yeah, that's really, I think that's really nifty how much the program builds on the things that you've already put in. Yes, I want to leave, and we'll go back to the online system. That's the priority goals, and then putting in your minutes and the rubric items, and then submit to Debbie. So, okay, what other questions?
One more.
Okay.
Julie said, just to be clear, all schools that desire Gold Star status must have one goal that is specifically geared towards one targeted group. That's one part of the question, which that is correct. With the changes that your team is making by the end of the week, will that need to be added by us?
Yeah, so what you're going to do is, and we'll send you an email that's got the link right in the email. And again, I really thank you for your patience. And I also appreciate Western that noted this and brought it to our attention. But what you're going to do is you're going to go into, back here on Program Goals, so you're going to do Enter Program Goals. You're going to click there. And then right here we now have this section that says Gold Star has a star. So anytime that you see a gold star, the gold star there, that's a goal you have to keep. You don't have to keep the rest of these. So if they are in there only because they were a suggested goal and not really something that your council and you came up with as a goal, just delete them out. Okay? So we're just, look at your Instagraphs from last time and what your council thought you should include as goals, and make sure they're all in, and then take out the ones that are extra. The other thing you could check, I don't think this will be an issue though, but where it says add suggested program goals, if there are, and again, we don't have this all set up yet, but if there are any over here that have boxes around them, that would mean that that you haven't included this as a goal yet. So, and those you do have to do for Gold Star. So you just click Add, and then down at the bottom hit Save, and that'll put them over on the other page. So, okay, so that should be fairly quick. I'm hoping that it doesn't take you more than 5 minutes. And again, we'll send you an email that's got the links right in it, so you can go directly to those pages with instructions of what to do on those pages. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, and on that same page, the drop-down box is where they would select the specific student group.
Right. So if I'm planning to go to college, here's how I think that would actually, most schools will do this. Let's say plan to go to college is one that you've looked at your data and you found that your Hispanic students are not planning to go to college as much as your non-Hispanics. So, you plan to go to college, that's something that you want all kids to do. So I would keep this goal in there saying all groups. Then I would go back and where it says a sec, let me check one thing here. I want to make sure I'm telling you right. Yeah, no, you do it here. Then I would say, I'd come back to this page and I'd say I want to create another plan to go to college group, and this time, let me back up so I want to make sure I'm not confusing you. The first time in, you would go click this and say, this is my goal for all groups, hit save, that'll save the goal for all groups. Then the second time in, you'd come here, click add, this time change the group to, what did we say, Hispanic, and then click save. This will create a second goal, and that will be for just the Hispanic kids. So now you have a goal to get all kids to plan to go to college, but then also a targeted goal for your Hispanic kids, so you'll hit them in a way that's a little bit different to kind of close that gap. Okay. Debbie, other questions?
Great. Nope, great, that's it.
Okay. Again, I'm sorry that we kept you over. We thought about maybe doing this as 2 different webinars, but we figured since you already had this scheduled, it would be best to just try to squeeze it all in an hour and have it. Obviously, we went to an hour and a half. I apologize. So we're really, really excited about working with you guys in the second semester. We're just thrilled with this funding. I mean, you know, as school counselors, and I've known some of you a long time, we've been advocating for funding to support school counseling programming for decades, and to have this funding be here is just so exciting, and to be able to really look at some innovative and delivery systems instead of collections of activities. I mean, that's something we've wanted to do for a long, long time. We are thrilled, and we hope some of you will want to go down that road with us, but if not, that's fine. I mean, we know that there's lots of different initiatives out there that are exciting. So, yeah, so I think that's it. Please do apply for the planning grant. If you need our help in any way, give us a call. We're trying to respond to emails now like ASAP, because we know you're in the middle of writing, and you probably need an answer like immediately. So I'm monitoring my emails, Debbie's monitoring hers all the time. So please feel free to send us a question if you have one. We know between now and next Friday, or next Thursday, you've got some work to do. So, and let's not let that funding go to waste. Even if you just apply for $100 to support one meal with your council, you know, I would hate it if we finally have this funding and then we don't use it. So, at any rate, okay, thanks everyone, and keep in touch. And if we don't talk with you between now and our next webinar, have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, and we hope everybody gets lots of time with family and lots of rest. So, okay, thanks everyone.